2,000 meters of solid rock above your head. No sunlight, no GPS signal, no way out for another 4 kilometers. And then the mountain moves. This isn't a movie. This is the Gotthard Base Tunnel, the longest, deepest railway tunnel ever built. And in the summer of 2003, the engineers building it made a discovery so catastrophic, so completely unexpected, that senior project managers were ready to walk away from a $12 billion project forever. What did they find? We'll get to that. But first, you need to understand why Switzerland was willing to gamble everything on a tunnel that everyone said was impossible. Every single year, 40 million tons of freight crosses the Alps between northern and southern Europe. Trucks, trains, convoys that stretch for kilometers through mountain passes that close in winter, that clog in summer, that cost the European economy billions in delays every single year. Switzerland's answer? Don't go over the Alps, go through them, at their base, at their absolute deepest and most geologically violent point. The plan: bore a 57-kilometer tunnel. That's longer than the distance from London's Oxford Circus to Heathrow Airport, straight through the heart of the Swiss Alps. 2 parallel tubes, high-speed rail, the most ambitious infrastructure project in European history. The Swiss government approved it in 1992, construction began in 1999, and almost immediately the mountains started fighting back. Here's the nightmare they found. Most of the Alps are made of hard metamorphic rock, granite, gneiss, stones so dense that TBM cutter heads chew through it at 2 centimeters per minute and still come out intact. Hard, predictable, manageable. But deep inside the mountain, at exactly the point where the engineers needed to bore, sat a geological anomaly called the Piora Zone, a seam of dolomite rock that had been crushed and dissolved by ancient underground water over millions of years. What remained looked like sugar, pale, crumbling, granular sugar that flowed under pressure. Imagine trying to dig a tunnel through wet sand at the bottom of the ocean. That is the Piora Zone. The temperature down there? 46 degrees Celsius. That's not the air temperature. That's the temperature of the rock itself, radiating geothermal heat into the tunnel. Workers described it like digging inside a sauna that was slowly filling with silt. If you were 2 kilometers underground and felt the floor beneath you start to soften, like solid ground turning to quicksand, what would be your first instinct? Drop everything and run? Or trust the engineering? Let me know in the comments. I'll read them. At one point, water was pouring out of the tunnel walls at 1,000 liters per minute. That's a mid-sized swimming pool every 8 minutes, draining directly into the construction zone. The boreholes pre-drilled to map the Piora Zone had come back with alarming readings, but nobody anticipated just how fluid it would become under real excavation pressure. 3 senior engineers filed formal objection reports in 2001. The project, they wrote, was geologically unworkable. 2 years later, their predictions almost came true. Meet the TBM, the tunnel boring machine, the $30 million mechanical beast that was supposed to solve everything. These machines are staggering. 400 tons of steel, 9 meters wide, 400 meters long when fully assembled with its trailing equipment. A rotating cutter head armed with 64 tungsten carbide discs, each designed to fracture granite with 250 kilonewtons of thrust, roughly the force of a commercial jet engine, applied to a single point the size of a dinner plate. In normal rock, a TBM advances about 25 meters per day. In the soft zones, it ground to a halt, literally. The cutter head would push forward, and the Piora material would simply ooze around it, like pressing your fist into wet clay at the bottom of the ocean, offering no resistance, no friction, nothing for the machine to push against. And then came the moment that almost ended everything. The engineers had a term for it: rock squeezing, or Druckhaftes Gebirge in German. Under extreme lithostatic pressure, the sheer weight of 2 kilometers of Alps pressing down, the Piora material didn't just flow around the TBM, it gripped it. The tunnel walls started closing inward. In some sections, up to 70 centimeters of inward movement was recorded in under 48 hours. One TBM, the one designated for the eastern tube near Fado, was gripped so completely that the rescue crew spent 11 consecutive days attempting to free it. The rescue involved controlled demolition around the shield's ship, injecting pressurized cement grout into every surrounding crack, and manually excavating rock by hand, under conditions that violated every existing safety protocol for underground work. On the surface, cows, wildflowers, hikers with walking poles, and no idea what was happening beneath their feet. The Gotthard Base Tunnel cost more than money. It cost 9 lives. 9 workers from Switzerland, Italy, Portugal, and Austria died during the 17-year construction. Rockfall, equipment accidents, one from heat-related cardiac arrest working in a 46-degree section with ventilation systems at capacity. Each death triggered a multi-week safety review and a redesign of the protocols governing that section of work. At peak, 2,500 people worked in shifts around the clock: geologists, blasting engineers, hydrologists, concrete specialists, and a new category of worker that hadn't existed before this project: convergence monitors, engineers whose entire job was to sit in the tunnel every 6 hours and measure whether the walls had moved. But the danger spawned invention. Because the Piora Zone could not be conquered with existing technology, the engineers had to create new technology in real time. The solution, developed partly on this tunnel and now used in every major deep rock project worldwide, was systematic pre-grouting. Before the TBM advanced even 1 meter in a danger zone, crews would drill hundreds of small boreholes ahead of the face, injecting pressurized cement grout into every fracture. The result, a hardened shell of stabilized rock, a manufactured geology that the machine could then bore through safely. Here's something that genuinely surprised me when I researched this. The pre-grouting technique invented on this tunnel is now standard practice in Hong Kong, Norway, and the US, but Switzerland holds no patent on it. It was released into engineering practice freely. Was that the right call, or should they have protected it? Tell me what you think. They also invented real-time seismic monitoring arrays, a network of sensors so sensitive they could detect micro-tremors in the rock face before they became dangerous shifts, systems that never existed at that depth, at that scale, in that heat. On December 11, 2016, 17 years after the first borehole was drilled and $12 billion later, the first commercial passenger train entered the Gotthard Base Tunnel and disappeared into the Alps at 200 kilometers per hour. The engineers had done the impossible. The Piora Zone conquered, not by brute force, but by understanding it, by injecting it, shaping it, working with its geology instead of against it. The TBMs that had been gripped and frozen, freed, repaired, and advanced to the finish line. Today, 260 trains pass through the Gotthard Base Tunnel every 24 hours. The crossing that once took 3.5 hours now takes 17 minutes. Over 40 million tons of freight move through it annually. The mountain that tried to stop it has not yet stopped it. That word, yet, matters. The Alps are not a static structure. The African tectonic plate is still pushing north into the Eurasian plate at roughly the same speed your fingernails grow. And the result is that the Alps are still rising. The mountains above the Gotthard Base Tunnel are gaining altitude 0.5 millimeter per year. The rock pressure on the tunnel lining is not fixed. It is a slow geological force that will continue for millions of years. The engineers designed the tunnel to last 100 years. The monitoring systems they built, the seismic arrays, the convergence sensors will run continuously for that entire century, not because they expect failure, but because the mountain is alive and they know it. Here's what keeps the project's original chief geologist up at night, and he said this on record in a 2019 interview. He said, "We built the tunnel for the Alps as they are. We cannot build it for the Alps as they will be." 17 years of construction, 9 lives, $12 billion, technologies invented from scratch, the longest tunnel in the world, running through the most dangerous geological zone they had ever encountered. And somewhere 2,000 meters below the cows and the wildflowers and the hikers with their walking poles, the Piora Dolomite is still there, still soft, still warm, still waiting.